machine, a veil over the eye. Race is a lie, a script for the managed, a reason to die. It's the dementia, the spirit, it's the glitch in the code. It's the heavy, heavy baggage on a sovereign road. Dissolve the construct. Yeah, yeah. It started as a lie, a whisper in the dark, designed to keep the brothers from finding the spark. Father is a soul whose sovereign operating system was no longer whole. It didn't pull that trigger from his fully human place. The construct had the wheel, the construct ran the race. So stop fighting your father and dismantle the disease. If a lawyer wrote the code, the architect holds the keys. What was manufactured can be dismantled.
Great Wednesday, and welcome to the Fully Human Trinity podcast. I'm your host, King. I'm joined by my co-hosts, Jess, Esther, and Mike Murphy. How you all doing today?
Good, thank you.
Great. Yeah.
Great to see you. You know, I look forward to Wednesdays for this purpose, for this podcast. You know, one of the great things about this podcast that I really love is that even though we have a set topic, I have no idea what's going to be shared. But I do know the energy that's going to be shared. That's the great thing about it. And I'm going to feel the energy, but the words you're going to say, I don't know. And I'm looking forward to learning that. And so with that being said, let's do our check-ins to kind of get set the context and let everybody know where we are and where we're vibrating at. So Jess, would you like to go first?
Yes, I am vibrating at a 10, just feeling the love energy today and a lot of really great connection. Grateful to be here today.
Grateful to be with you. Mike?
I gotta say, I'm spiritually about an 8 right now. I'm getting sucked more and more into the world, and so it's hard to sometimes balance that and just stay, spiritually connected at the same time, get sucked into the problems or challenges that we face every day.
Absolutely. I understand exactly what you're saying. I'm a 10, and my only way of, well, 2 ways now, thanks to Jess, of being able to regulate myself from the noise. One is being able to wake up and just be grateful and choosing that gratitude is my first thought before everything else gets the day set and being in that state. And then I let the world come and hit that armor. It's a different energy of how I receive things happen to me when I look at it from, I'm grateful for my life, my health, my ability to see, breathe, have sound mind. And what I've learned is that if any of those things are lacking, regardless of what else I'm working on, those are going to be my major issues I'm dealing with right there. So just being grateful for that just really sets, because with that sound mind and eyesight and ability to hear, and any problem can be solved. And every problem is designed to be solved as you grow as a person. So keeping me in that state. So with that being said, that really helps sets the tone for our conversation today, because today we really want to get more into, because I'm really curious about you all's past journey as it relates to identity and identity context that, just to be clear, I define, and that's why I wanted to the context of this, identity being what you either kill for or die for. And that's what it determines our identity, because it determines our outlook on the world. It determines how our behaviors are going to be. It determines our ambitions. It determines who we love, who we hate. It determines our goals and things that we're going to do in life. And more importantly, it determines how we receive information and how we receive others. And within that context, that identity, we're given that when we're born. I call it your cultural givens. You're told you're a boy. Here's your race, here's your ethnicity, here's all the things you're told that you have to conform to within. And then depending on your ethnicity, how deep your parents were into that, if they strong Catholic Irish, then you're going to get that. If they're strong in the Black culture, I got that. So now you got to manage all those things that before you even realize what's really going on in the world. And for a child to come into the world and have their imagination, as never God teaches us, imagination is pretty much God. As your ability just to be able to create whatever that comes to your mind gets tainted and taught to be realistic. and you get conformed into this category of check boxes. And so within that description, I want to share quickly how I looked at my identity coming up. Again, my identity was definitely initially tied to my race. Then it was tied to first it's tied to your gender, as you taught your little boy, and here's what's expected of little boys and everything else. Then very shortly it's tied to my race, and here's what's expected of black boys. And you gotta put that black on there. And then from there, that helped shape how I saw the world, how I watch movies, how I interact with people, how when I see someone, I'm judging them through that lens of being that black boy and what I've been told and what I've seen on TV and things that I've experienced. That person's judged even before they even open their mouth. And I've learned now through life, and particularly going to Mountains of Hope, how identity can prohibit you from being able to experience some great things in the world. Fortunately for me, I chose to change my identity and be open-minded, and I've been able to build such a wonderful thing and movement that's happening with Jess and Mike here. So now within that context, I just want to give you all both an opportunity to, how do you all feel about identity as it relates to this conversation? And Mike, I want to go with you first, Mike, this time, because you mentioned you were 8 because of what's happening in the world. And I just want to ask, what do you see how your identity feels in that narrative of how you look at what's happening in the world as well?
Well, what I was referring to is that, I'm in California now, but I have a lot of things that need to be happening in Colombia.
Oh, okay.
So I get sucked into that, and then that leads to frustration because things move at a snail's pace there, and very simple problems don't get solved. And so that's my frustration, is that I get sucked into that while I'm over here trying to do a lot of things I need to do over here. And what I'm realizing is that, I think this is true for most of us, for some crazy reason, we think there's a destination that we're going to arrive at. Mm-hmm. The only certain destination we're ever going to arrive at is that moment we take the last breath. And that's the destination that we're all headed to right here. But I think by getting this stuff off my to-do list today and getting all the stuff done, that I've arrived, and now I'm free. No. The same thing, right? But for some strange reason, I feel like I get this done. I mean, some of that is chemical, of course. So we get dopamine hits from getting stuff done. So that's good. But what I have to realize is that there's no point in getting frustrated, especially with people in Colombia today that are going to do what they're going to do, and I have no control over that. And so. So I have to let those frustrations go, which I'm pretty good at letting them go. You just happened to catch me right after I hung up the phone with someone there. But that's something that really resonated with me and got me thinking when it comes to identity is, what would you kill for and what would you die for? And I really think that sums it up, right? It doesn't fully tell you what my identities were or what they are now or what they're going to evolve into, right? Because that's a fluid, constant state of evolution and motion based on experiences. I might have this experience today that's going to change the reference point of what I thought about this, which is going to change this path I choose to go on. All those things are always taking place. And so to give you a little example. So I grew up in a pretty crazy household. But one thing my father did every New Year's Day, he would have a New Year's Day party, and it would start in about noon, and it would, because that's the day where all the college football games are being played, especially back when I was growing up. New Year's Day was the day. There wasn't 3 weeks of bowl season. There was basically one day. And so there'd be like 6 football games that day. And so he'd have all his friends, my parents would have all their friends over, and there'd be a lot of alcohol and a lot of gambling. And so that was a big, exciting moment for me, I can remember from 6 years old to about 14 years old, every year, getting ready for the party. I would be the guy that would go around and sell the slips to get your number to where you could gamble and win money on the thing, and serve the drinks, and everybody was happy. And it was a great, exciting day. Now, little did I know that was programming me to become a drinker and a gambler and a womanizer and all this other stuff, because I just thought it was a great, fun experience, right? But it was forming my identity. To give you an example, when I was growing up, I played football and I was a quarterback. And so when I was younger, my idol, the quarterback that I wanted to be like, was a guy by the name of Johnny Unitas. Johnny Unitas was a very strong, very, very probably religious guy, very honest guy, family guy. And so that's who I aspired to be, right? Now, as I got older and I discovered alcohol and I discovered women, okay, that I now changed my quarterback from Johnny Unitas to a guy named Joe Namath, who was also called Broadway Joe, that drank in the bars and he wanted his Johnny Walker black and his women blonde. Okay. So that became my new identity. And so there I started chasing, instead of chasing good, wholesome stuff, I started chasing stuff that would lead to problems and things like that. So we're subject to our programming. I still deal with some of this childhood programming today, decades later. So because it's deeply ingrained into our subconscious mind. And until we shine light on it and see it and identify it, and then even then, we still need to want to change it. Okay. Once we get to that point, then we can change and become anything we want. The beautiful thing is that we can make our identity anything we want. Okay. And once we change our identity, we change everything. But we are in charge of that. We don't have to be victims to that. We can create a new identity. If your current identity is not serving you, create a new one. Create whatever freaking identity you want. You have that power. You have that right. You have that sovereignty. So, but what you said was, what would you kill for? So that got me thinking. And there's only one thing I would kill for is my family. And that is such a huge part of my identity. And I can look at, just how important that is to me. So I would kill for my family. And what would I die for? There's really only one thing I would die for. Of course, I would die for my family. But for me personally, what would I die for? I would die for my integrity. I would die for my soul, for my essence, who I truly am. That's the only thing that I would die for, is if I had to give that up, if I had to surrender that, because I can't surrender that, because that's my eternal truth. And so my integrity, my connection to source, my commitment to my soul and to my spirit, that's all there is. That's the only reality happening in my life. If I really get quiet and honest with everything, all this other stuff is just bullshit and noise, right? The truth is, who am I and how can I be true to myself and myself? And the more that I truly know myself and embrace myself, the more that I love myself. And the more that I love myself, the more free I become. And that's really what we're looking for here. If you want peace and joy and happiness and all that stuff, you've got to find freedom, and freedom from suffering, and freedom from judgment, and freedom from the things that don't serve you, and understand that you are in control of this. Okay. You're not a victim. You get to choose what thoughts linger in your mind, and you can kick them out if they're not serving you. And if they're serving you, you can keep them in there and let them percolate and become a vision or a destiny or a project or whatever. And then I get to choose what I do every day and where I spend my money and what I get to do. So when I realize I have that power and that I don't have to be a victim, then I can create the life of my dreams.
Love it. Resonated with that so well. It was interesting. I remember when you first got started, and you said that there was this quarterback that you idolized. And before you said it, I was thinking it's going to be John Unitas. Yeah. And you said John Unitas. And I just had that feeling that it was going to be John Unitas. So that's funny in that interesting context. But yeah, I completely agree with everything you said. That's why I think we see alignment with who we are and what we do. Mm-hmm. And I want to now bring Jess into this conversation, Jess, and see, what are your thoughts as it relates to the identity question?
Yeah, I also just feel so much alignment with or so much resonance with what you're saying, Mike. Just that's so true, and especially what you would live and die for. For myself, I feel like a very distinct time in a creation of identity. I was about 30 years old, and I had fallen away from my religious construct. And I was stepping into a new identity quite consciously, even though there was a lot of unconscious pattern I still had at that age. And I stepped into the identity of business owner. And how that identity shifted me. I think the identity that I had prior to that was just mother. Like I had literally lost my identity in motherhood. And the only way that I could find myself was in the interests of my children and the work that I was doing with children. So then to establish a new identity, it was to create an organization that would serve children. So it wasn't too far off from my original identity that I was working with. And as I stepped into that, it did become that task list that you pulled up, Mike, where you're like, I'm going to feel better when I reach the end of the destination. And every day it was a task list that just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And the amount of hats that I held and the amount of responsibility that I held and the expansion. And though I did feel like, well, with this identity, I'm serving my purpose, there was a huge self-neglect. There was huge self-abandonment, and there was no self-love. Like it was all love for other, and just like talk about a bypass. I would wake up in the morning and just jump to that to-do list. There was no time for me ever. So it was quite a paradigm shift. Like I went through a lot of transformation and ended up at Mountains of Hope and was there to be in service of the patients who were there. And it was really the first time that I had taken this conversation with Mike of like, I really only want you helping my patients if you have a full cup conversation, where I knew I was going to be implementing love myself first and then serve others from that space of overflow rather than lack. And I was like, well, this is a different way to like serve others if I'm actually going to be going into this beautiful kitchen, dining room, and eating from a regenerative garden and receiving life force for myself. Like not a cup of coffee run out the door, but like feed myself. There were morning after morning where I would sit and just cry. Like I've never given myself this freedom to receive. And I didn't even have to make it. And to put that before serving the patients really allowed me for the first time to be fully present and so in service of what I know is the bigger vision for that space. And ever since leaving, I've continued to develop this morning practice of gratitude and self-love and nurturing, of filling myself up. And, you know, we had a conversation with Rachel about it yesterday, you know, because she's the one that led me to Mountains of Hope and talked about the regenerative garden and how our cells need this nutrition. And now she's got this abundant life force after really coming to this end of her life a couple of times in the last year and a half. And the conversation we had yesterday was about that self-love, was about that nurturing, was about like, no matter where in your journey you are, if you can't flip this switch of like, I would die to love myself and I would live to love myself, it'd be challenging for me to move forward now without that connection. So that's why it really is resonant, Mike, when you say, if I don't have my essence, if I don't have the connection to who I am, I wouldn't even want to live. And I'm just getting to the point in my life where like, I finally know who I am and have that freedom that I can hear what you're saying.
Yeah. And Jess, what you just laid out there is so impactful and resonates with me in so many ways, because as you talk about being born into the Mormon faith, you talk about being a mother and having those identities, and with every identity that's given to us, a set of expectations come along with it as well. So it's not just given to you, it's given to you and says, here's the role you have to play within this identity, and here's who you need to build with, and here's who you need not to like, and here's who you need to other. And so what people don't realize how much they've been programmed to still think that way. And I noticed that when I first started questioning my racial identity after being conditioned to know that that's who I was willing to die for, was willing to die for my race. And having to shift that, and then being left without identity, left me without a purpose for the first time in my life, or since I was 18, and left me without a purpose since I was 18. And I was trying to figure out, what do I do now? Who am I now? And who do I connect with now? And fortunately for me, Mountains of Hope was the place that I decided to go to with those questions, and go there and get gratitude and feel that gratitude of being able to be there. And like I said, Mike, the intentionality you put into that place, from the beauty of the flowers that surround it, the landscaping, so it's not like you have to come into a city where we are in Mountains of Hope and just stay at a hotel and everything is internal as a interior type of presence. You're able to get out there and communicate with nature and feel the mountain air and interact with the people and all that. I find it, I'm sure there's still people who find opportunities to be negative all the time anyway. They just choose that. But I found it very difficult for me to let my negative shadow self kick in and start telling me what was wrong with Mountains of Hope. Like, here's what I'm not happy about. Here's what I don't like. I didn't have any of those thoughts. And it was, for the first time, my mind was quiet around that. And I was open to just experiencing eating food that looked picturesque. Do I really want to eat this, or I want to take a picture of this? And you eat it, and then you enjoy it. And then everybody else is having that same thought. And they're taking pictures, and everybody's pulling their phones out every meal. It's like, and they're taking their phones out, and they're taking their picture, and they're just watching people have that experience. And it's for the first time I didn't feel the check boxes that the U.S. puts on you. Like, here you constantly are going to be in choose your tribe that you're forced into, and be ready to be triggered or defend or accept or give grace or give understanding based on your tribe. And if it's based on your skin color tribe, your gender tribe, all those things, just conflicting messages that you play. I call the Civil War in the skull. And I got that term from Alan Watts, because that's what people have. When you're battling what you really want to do, your true essence you talked about before, Mike, compared to your programming telling you, well, no, you need to worry about this because this is what's happening to white men, straight, cisgen white men. You need to lean into that because you're being attacked. And then I found the only way, and this is why I want to ask you all this question now, I found the only way for me to quiet that noise is to think about helping somebody else. And the more I think about helping someone else, that shifts the state of mind. And that puts me immediately in creative mode. Because now I got to be a creative problem solver to help this person. And I found that every solution to helping someone comes down to three things. And you might enlighten me if I'm wrong or I'm leaving something out. But it's either going to be knowledge, a connection, or a resource for every solution to everybody's problem that they're having. And if you can be a resourceful person, then I can try to position myself to be in the middle of brokering that or bringing that to a person, that solution. That became my mindset. And that gets me away from the thoughts that my forced tribalization has been drilled into me since birth. So I want to ask what you all thoughts for how do you handle that process as well?
Yeah, something came to mind. Give me those three things again. Resources,
knowledge, or a connection.
Knowledge, connection, yeah. So from a male's perspective, we want to fix problems, and so that would be resources and knowledge. We're going to fix this for you. But from a feminine perspective, it's just being present. And that would be the connection. And so, and that's probably the best way we can help people that are suffering or that are in grief or that are have an illness, is just to be there and be present and just listen. And I think that's the greatest gift we can give people at times. Obviously, of course, a lot of people think they need money. And a lot of times they do need money just to eat. So that's one resource that's valuable. What would be more valuable is knowledge of how they could earn money so that they can feed themselves, right? You can give someone a fish or you can teach them how to fish, right? But I think it's, for me, 100% is that anytime I'm stuck in self-pity or fear or regret or guilt, if I can get out of myself and help someone else by either just being there and being present for them or assisting them with the challenge that they're dealing with, once you're out of yourself, you don't have any problems, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just a simple little switch. One thing, and I'd be curious, I'm just going to throw one more subject out there that I'm just curious about. I've been on watching this show called Yellowstone. And one of the constant themes is, it has to do with, indigenous Indian Americans, and then the West taking over, cattle farmers and all this kind of stuff. But so it's kind of spiritual in a lot of ways. But one theme that keeps coming up, I'm just curious because I'm starting to kind of believe it, is that whenever somebody's trying to do good in a situation, evil is always going to show up because there's a counterbalance to everything. We live in this 3D physical reality, which is created by duality. It's only created because you can't have hot without cold, black without white, right?
Right.
So that makes total sense because now I look back on my life, and every time I've tried to do something really good, okay, there you are attacked by evil. And so now that I'm really embracing that as a concept, it's making it much easier to realize, okay, why are these things happening, right? And so for some strange reason, I found profound peace in that theory, because I think in the New Age kind of world, and that's one thing about Catholicism and Christianity. I mean, they don't fool around when it comes to it's good versus evil, right? So there's duality right there. But the New Agers of us, we want everything's positive, and you can't look at problems, Well, the truth of the matter is, I mean, it's everywhere. And so by realizing this now, I'm finding a lot of peace in the work that I do and say, okay, I see why that's happening now. No big deal. Let's just move around it, right? Instead of getting emotionally invested in that or getting angry or getting frustrated, right? Just say, hey, good, I must be on the right track if stuff is coming in to try to stop me right now. So I didn't mean to take away from what you were talking about, but I just wanted to offer that perspective as well.
No, it fits right on in because you're absolutely right. I believe that duality exists. I think it's necessary. The only reason you can recognize the shadow is because of the light.
Right.
So Jess, what do you?
Yeah, I really appreciate bringing this up because it brings up a distinction. When I was talking earlier about the self-love and having this like abundance of overflow before I go serve others, and I talked about that being in contrast to before when I would just like run to serve others. When I was running to serve others, like the identity that I held was the energy of lack. It came from the construct of not having a mother. And so when you're coming from that place of lack and then you're looking to get out of lack, there becomes a bypass of energy to just go serve. Just go serve. It's going to give me a dopamine hit. It's going to help me feel better.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's a hollow trap. It's not real freedom. And it doesn't have the counterbalance. And so I think there's like a real distinction between serving and serving self and other. Because I'm really clear at this point of becoming more fully human that if I continue to dysregulate and come from lack and something's wrong and I need to fix, I'm going to continue perpetuating the same issue that I had in the past. And that goes like from macro to micro on all levels. But if I look at it from the identity of being whole and filled first, and then I can be unlimited in my service. So I just wanted to point that out because, energy is everything, and where the energy is coming from matters. Like if it's being received because I'm open and in a receptive mode because I don't manage all my stress right now, that's one way. as opposed to like being cut off and now I need to go fix myself by serving.
Yeah.
Does that communicate?
Mhm.
Absolutely. You're both hitting something really profound, and I really want to sum it up for our listening audience, because you both are talking about you have to first, again, get to know yourself before you can be external. You have to do the internal battle. And that's why I really love the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen R. Covey, because the book is broken down. The first 3 habits are internal. Then the next 3 habits are external. So you have to go through the internal habits first before you get to the external habit. And then there's the 7th habit is renewal, constantly resharpening the saw. So now once you get through that, you got to just constantly keep doing it over and over again. It never stops, to your point, Mike. And I think that the problem that most people face is either they're dealing with a regret or they're stressed out with anxiety over the future. And both of those times you can't control. So that's just like really worrying about having too much water in the ocean. And what you think about it, there's so much water in the ocean, someone needs to do something about this. And the person just saying that literally every day, you have to question what's your sanity. But that's what people who focus so much on the future, and the future doesn't exist. You can plan as much as you want to say, well, here's what I'm going to do tomorrow. But if tonight you wake up and your back's hurting and you can't get up and go do something, then you can't do that tomorrow. And it's just that simple. And so he talks about how you have to dance with the universe, Alan Watts says. He says, humans are the only people who think that the world should act the way they want it to act. And then you get upset because it doesn't. Like, who are you to have the world act the way you want it to act? The world is going to be the world. You have to dance with the world instead of fight and complain about the world or wish and hope that these things don't happen. They're going to happen. That's what life is. Someone's going to make a mistake. Someone's going to drink too much and cause an accident. How do you respond to that moment? And being the observer in that moment to help you say, I'm triggered. My natural thought would be to do this, but I caught myself. I'm going to choose to do this instead. And then the more you can do that, to me, is how you build your self-mastery. Mm-hmm. And that now becomes the quest of someone who is really growth-minded. Because I'm always looking at my prayer every day. I pray for is I want to be a more kinder, smarter, and wiser person tomorrow than I was today. Yeah. Right? Because I know I haven't, and I'm never going to receive or achieve perfection, and I don't want to. Because then it gets boring. Like if you knew what was going to happen tomorrow, how interested would you be getting out of bed? It's an unknown that keeps us intrigued. Oh, something I can meet someone new today. I can learn something new today. And so with that being said, and that's why I think identity plays a role in there as well, because as I talk to people who, and I'm not going to just pick out any particular religious dogma, but all the ones that who identify by that, their religious teaches them that they can't accept or believe something. They can't connect with somebody because they're supposed to hate that person. And what people don't really think about anymore is when you identify by that, you got to understand what is the other person that you're sharing that with, how do they receive that? So if you tell somebody I'm a Christian, in your mind, you might have a great idea of what a Christian does and what Christians do. In the other person's mind, they're thinking like, well, all the Christians I met are evil, they're hurtful. So I take it as an insult that you're a Christian, right? Or a Muslim or a Jew or whatever it is your religious dogma is. And just being aware now, that's the next question I want to ask. Self-awareness becomes such a huge part of being able to be of service, to connect, to grow. What are some of the ways and practices that you all both do to help make sure your self-awareness, your actions, your impact in your community, your environment, your family, you are being mindful of that? Mm.
Well, for me, it's reflection. You know, it's the end of the day reflection. Okay, how did I show up in this situation? How did I react to that? And could I have done it differently where it would have felt better, right? That's how I evaluate. It's self-reflection and self-honesty. And I find that not a lot of people are totally honest with themselves. You know, so one of the things I'm most grateful about myself is I've always been, I might lie to you and I might bullshit you, but I'm not going to lie to myself. And I'm not going to bullshit myself, because that's when you get into serious problems in this
Yeah.
world. Because when you're lost, and
Right.
then you're subject to anything, right? So it's really, really important to reflect on your day, and so I think the biggest issue in this world that we live in today is that no one ever helps you find out why you're here and what you're supposed to be doing. What is your purpose for being in this 3D physical reality? Okay. I know in my case, it was just, there was never any, what do you get? Well, you start out, you want to be a cowboy. Well, guess what, son, they don't have cowboys and Indians anymore. So
Right.
what about that bullshit? Okay. By the way, we teach kids not to lie, but we lie about the tooth fairy, and we lie about Santa Claus, and we lie about all this other bullshit, and then we get mad at them for lying, right? So I think we need to do a better job of educating our children and helping them find their way. What is their gift? We all show up with a unique.
Yes.
But so many people struggle. I don't know what I want to be. I mean, I know I went through that forever. What do I want to be? And then pretty soon you're forced to be something because you've accumulated all this debt or these children or whatever, and now you're in prison, right? And that could have all been avoided with good parenting and good education. But we put everybody in the same freaking box, okay? You go to the kindergarten, you go to the first grade, you learn how to talk, you learn how to write, you learn how to add and subtract, and then geometry and calculus and all this other bullshit, right? That most people are never, ever going to use. But let's say, okay, like I have a little 2.5-year-old grandson right now. And so this kid loves to dance. Now, I promise you, his dad is going to want to get him into golf and get him into baseball. And I'm saying, screw that. This kid has a gift. He lights up the room when he's dancing, okay? Let's get him a guitar and let's get him some drums and let's teach him how to dance. Let's feed his gift. Now, if that is down the way, then we'll change it, right?
Yes.
But let's focus on the gifts that they show up with and let's help them develop that. But, as parents, like my dad was a professional baseball player. He wanted to call me Mickey Mantle Murphy. Okay, my mother didn't allow that, right? but and it turns out I love baseball, but I was never given that choice. I love music, but I was never given that choice, right? And so, but more importantly, I was never taught anything about real life. I was never taught anything about myself. We don't teach people about sexuality. What's more important than sex, right? Do we teach people this? No. Do we teach the sacredness of it? No. And so now everybody's messed up there. And that's probably one of the biggest dilemmas in the world today is people are all messed up when it comes with their own sexual identity and how to show up with that. How many marriages today are sexless, right? Because we lost touch, because we've created all this warped bullshit around it, because no one ever tells us the truth. In fact, they tell us the opposite of the truth so that they control us and they can monetize us and all this other bullshit, right? So I really think it's for the hope for humanity, and I think there's a lot of hope for humanity as we see things crumbling, the old way of life crumbling, and we're going into a new consciousness. And I believe we're going from a masculine energy into a feminine energy, which is going to make so much easier life. But in the meantime, there's a struggle as we make this transition. So we have to prepare for the struggle. But I believe that we're going to come out the other side where we're going to start teaching our children and nurturing our children and holding our children. I mean, instead of all this other craziness that's going on around children right now. And that will start to heal humanity.
Yes. Well, now you know why I opened up the organization for children.
Yeah.
And more meaningful than that, the children who didn't fit in boxes, the children who are on the spectrum.
And they're probably more evolved than any and all of us. Okay.
More gifted than any neurotypical mind.
But they can't function in this world. So that's why there's a way to bring those gifts out of children without putting poison in them and breaking something to where that's the only thing that shines through, right? We need to bring those gifts out without doing damage to the entire organism.
That's right.
Absolutely. Jess, do you want to comment on there before I go into
I mean, it's such a mic drop. Thanks for being a mic and dropping the mic. You're singing praises to my soul right now of the importance of why we're doing this work.
Absolutely. I completely concur. And Mike, you teed up something there that helped me really realize what's the frequency signal I want to play today. That was really conflicting. And you said there, what you said in the last part there about raising the consciousness. Again, getting to a different level. Again, elevating, growth-minded, emerging. That's a common thread I keep hearing and thinking about. And that's exactly what my mind is how do I continue to emerge? So that I want to make sure that the world knew I was here, right? And in doing so, the question became, how do I achieve higher consciousness? What are some of the ways I got to begin to think about what practices and protocols and rituals that I need to do on a daily basis to make that happen? And so in order to do that, I create a frequency signal that helps remind me that I want to share that with you all. And it's called higher consciousness.
This is not music. This is a frequency signal. AI is the instrument, king. People pay for what they do and still more for what they have allowed themselves to become. And they pay for it very simply by the lives they lead. James Baldwin. I'm not here to perform for you. I'm here to remind you of what you forgot. And forgetting is the oldest crime. The Gnostics called it forgetfulness, asleep the world designed. They built the bed, gave you the pillow, and called it peace of mind. You identified with your race, your religion, your career, and your age, and called the cage a stage to keep you in a rage. The construct sold you a plan delivered with such sincerity. Soul is the apex, head is the tool. The construct reversed the order and sold you the confusion as clarity. Now you're fighting a civil war in your skull and calling it normal. The kingdom of God is within you, not external. They built a building over it and claimed it as a creed. Jesus said, follow me, not worship. And that difference is the seed.
This is not advice,
a cool saying or fake news.
this is you entering
A seeking mode, given the construct the blues. Within that silence you stop conforming and start living within your divine essence, and focus on the present in order to win. Higher consciousness you must seek within.
higher consciousness,
Higher consciousness,
higher consciousness.
the answer to salvation is the ultimate win. Your divinity comes from a higher state. The package was never lost, just mislabeled as external. Once you connect to the true one source, you
To become eternal.
8 words to recalibrate: love, faith, patience, forgiveness, serving gratitude, generative oneness. Oneness with the universal energy. A frequency so divine it lifts you permanently. The pattern must be repeated, dawn and dark, for the soul to restore. Pick up the cross as a form of frequency, not as folklore. I know that we that all possess that divine spark, shining full and bright to finally lead us out of the dark. Call Jung Map the shadow, because the inner work can't be outsourced or purchased or externally achieved. If the truth was never outside you, why were you told to believe the most dangerous lies? The one dressed up in answered prayer, a package is blessing or to something rare. Stop searching, start observing. The answer was watching you look. The construct can't tax what it can't name, and that's the page they removed from the book. Your energy is draining at an alarming rate, and silence is costing you anxiety, depression, the shadow giving orders, and you think it's you. Reset, reclaim, recalibrate, not in weakness, in architecture. The truth is not kind about timing, it's simply your eyes before the vulture. You are not your name, not your race, not the war in the skull. You are the awareness underneath the observer, the one the construct never got a receipt for. The pleroma, the fullness is not the destination you earn. It is your original frequency, the one the construct spent centuries making you unlearn. But your soul knows, and the song's rhythm and melody is flowing directly to soul, to your heart, to your body. Higher consciousness dissolves the construct moment you decide to take a stand. The most expensive performance in history is living someone else's plan.
Higher consciousness.
Higher consciousness.
Higher consciousness.
The answer to salvation is the ultimate win.
Love, faith, patience,
Forgiveness,
serving gratitude.
generative oneness, oneness with the universal energy of free.
Frequency so divine.
It lifts you permanently. Say those 8 words before it gets too late. Before your spirit leaves this land without knowing its own weight. Recalibrate. Frequency alignment. Dissolve the construct. You were never lost. You were only sleeping. And sleep is not a verdict. This is what it means to be fully human. Ancestors.
I'm broadcasting my signal.
Ancestors.
M-B-O-P, Oruko
We call your names.
M-B-O-P, Oruko.
Are you picking up? Are you picking up?
Wow.
Thank you for sharing that moment with me. I want to get your thoughts on higher consciousness and how they resonate to you, with you.
Well, in the beginning of that song, you call these songs?
Yes. Frequency systems, actually. I'm sorry.
They talk about forgetfulness, you know, how there was a page missing from the book and they kind of put us to sleep. And I think that goes to what I was speaking about earlier. Not only for, we're never remember why we even came here. So of course we're going to be in a state of forgetfulness. And I think, you know, for some reason people want an easy life. And I don't think an easy life, this wasn't designed to be easy. This was designed to be work. And we're to show up and work. And what are we working for? We're working for a beautiful humanity, a beautiful existence here on this beautiful earth with this beautiful sky and this amazing sun. And look how toxic we've created this place to be, with all the toxicity in the water and in the air and in the food, and then all the wars, and then all the human trafficking and all this nonsense. And what drives me absolutely crazy and frustrates me to a point where I shut down is you can't even talk about this. You can't go to a dinner party with your family and talk about these real issues that are affecting humanity because they can't deal with it. You know, you know, I want to talk about the $40 trillion in debt in this country and the $1 trillion interest payment every year and the $1 trillion military budget that we spend, and we only bring in 2.5 trillion. We're printing a trillion dollars every 120 days. Mm-hmm. Where is this going to stop? But nobody wants to talk about. No, we can't talk about that. Okay, or we can't talk about all this these Epstein files, and what about this human trafficking? What about these missing children? No, we can't talk about that. Okay, what about all these medical treatments? That 75% of the people in this country are obese because they put chemicals in the food that addicts them to the process. No, we can't talk about that. Well, what the hell can we talk about? You know? And so that's the problem. We have all these problems that nobody can handle talking. They rather watch, Fox News for 10 minutes and that's their fucking reality and talking points. Or they watch CNN for 10 minutes and that's their talking point without not having a clue that that's all 90% propaganda and lies. And that they have to, I don't even know how people deal with it, honestly. But that's what frustrates me is we have all these problems that nobody will talk about. Well, guess what? They're only going to get worse. And then we have all these criminals in the government that are making them worse. And that's how it's designed. And now the apocalypse, they talk about the apocalypse in the Bible. All that means is lifting of the veil. So it's like the Wizard of Oz right now. They're lifting the veil. And we're seeing it as just a freaking clown show, right?
Yeah.
But we can't talk about that either. And so what are we doing? We're just going to wait and just leave our body and leave shit for our kids and our grandkids, because that's what's happening. So that's what drives me and motivates me is to let's just find something we can do to make the world a little better place. And when we take that last breath, we got out here and say, hey, because of this work over here, the place is a little better. And that's all we can do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think you're definitely hitting a solid point in identity as well. Because when we can reinvent our identity and we can create ourselves as fully human, then we can be present to that conversation.
Yeah.
I can certainly say for myself that conversation is welcome here.
Yeah.
And I open the reflection for these things that are on our heart.
Yeah.
To be released, to be heard, to be seen, to be witnessed.
Yeah.
And to create an identity where I have the space and presence to do that is an honor and a gift. And I'm remembering more and more every day who I am and what I came here to be through these opportunities to just sit and be real with zero agenda.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was talking to a 35-year-old Romanian woman last night, and she came to the U.S., for the American dream and to create wealth and all that, right? And she loves America because America is good for that. You at least have an opportunity here to create. But what she realized is that it's not about wealth. It's not about fame and fortune. It's about a modest, simple life. Friends and family of love, compassion, and joy, and community. And for some reason, we're all chasing a bigger house and a bigger car, a nicer car. And believe me, from someone that's lived that life and have chased those things, that is not the answer to happiness, not even close. It's a recipe for disaster, honestly. And until we come home to ourselves and we realize who we are, what we're here, and that there's a whole bigger picture here than this little 3D physical reality here, because we're spirit, we are eternal, timeless consciousness. And when we tap into that energy and you realize that I don't need a mansion, I don't need fame on Instagram or wherever you're going to find it, and it's just the simple little things in life that will bring you the real pure joy. It's guilt free. It's free. It's just pure joy in living and being present. And there's a price to pay for everything. And so while we're chasing wealth or we're chasing things, you have to sell your soul in different ways to get these things, right? And it's just not worth it. Simplicity is the key to life.
Yeah, I think I just want to piggyback off something you said earlier, like that work is hard. Like doing the task list is hard, but life is not hard. Like life is really, really simple. And the more simplified we can create it, the more authentic we can be.
But it still requires work. And
it still requires work.
We still got to get off our ass. And let's say, we need a fire. We got to go get the wood. Okay. We got to go through the forest, and there might be dangerous things in the woods, and we have to get the wood and we have to bring it home. We have to create warmth for our family, or we have to go get the food. Now it's a little easier today. It's ridiculous now today, because I just pick up my phone and I go to DoorDash. I mean, it's insane, right? So, but the truth is, we're designed to go out and work and for our food and for our shelter and for our water, and that's it. But we do have to work.
Yeah. I think this conversation is helping me understand that it does begin with your identity, right? Like remembering who you are first, and then you can do those things. So it's a combination. It's a real distinction. Who you be,
Yeah.
who you are as your essence, that tells you, it informs what you do. But if you mix that up and you go to doing based in your construct, you're just going to recreate the shit show, the circus.
Absolutely.
Over and over.
So, Mark Twain was once quoted as saying that human beings are the only animal that would build themselves a cage, get in the cage, and then hold the key to the cage and say, here's my key to the cage. And then think that they're doing something intellectual by showing that. And to the points you all have made, I think they're great points, because at the end of the day, what I've learned is that you are who you be and what you do. But to your point, you have to choose your identity, because if you don't choose your identity, there is no middle ground. You live your plan or you live on someone else's plan. There is no middle ground between that. And if you didn't choose your identity, someone else, you're living their plan. And you may think is your plan, but how many people I've talked to that told me, I went to college for this, but I got a degree, but I'm not doing anything with my degree. I'm doing something over here, because you just made decisions based on what other people told you.
Yep.
And to your point, Mike, this is what I think a lot of people get wrong as well. Work to me is the life. You want the work because that's the growth. Like if your body doesn't move, it atrophies. Your muscles atrophy. Your brain atrophies. Everything. So the universe requires you to work, and you should want to work with that pleasure of doing something that brings an impact in the world, not work to make someone else rich. That's the problem.
And there is a perfect point when it comes to what we've done to the African American community. Okay, we took away good jobs, right, and started giving them welfare, and then they became lazy. Okay, right. And no fault of their own. Okay, I mean, yes, when I was growing up, most Black women were domestic workers, yes, or nurses or something like that. But at least they were working. Okay, and they were married. And then all of a sudden, that whole community got destroyed with drugs by design. And so, and now to offset that, let's just give them money. And the more babies they have without a father, let's give them even more money. We're incentivizing them to create chaos in their lives instead of saying, hey, listen, here's an opportunity for you to go get a real job and work and be part of it. But no, let's give everybody welfare. And it's not just Black people now too. It's white people. It's economic racism now today. And so we give them food stamps, we give them welfare, but we don't give them jobs. You know, if we're going to give them that, let's give them something to do for 40 hours a week so that they feel good about themselves. Yes, I did this job, and here's my paycheck. I mean, I'll never forget this. My wife, when we were raising our children, I came home from work. She says, hey, I found a great way to teach the kids about money. I go, great. What'd you do? Well, I gave them all $100. I took them to the bank and they opened a checking account. And now they have 1 month to go through their $100. And I'm thinking to myself, well, why don't we have them clean the garage and then we give them $5? Okay. I mean, it just made no sense to me, right? But that's how society views the world today. You know, let's give stuff away. No, let's give them opportunity and to earn money and do it that way. That's my opinion.
Yes.
And I want to speak to that, Mike, because I believe a lot of things you said was right. But then the construct also makes you think that if you ask people the face of welfare, they'll think of a Black person.
Yeah, which
Black
is
women in particular, which is
many
right.
people, white people on food stamps as well, Black people.
Exactly. And this is what I worked on within the conscious community, was that we wanted to make sure that you can live on the properties be built and the community be built, but you have to have work to get here. Everybody has to contribute at least $500 a month towards the savings that would be used to purchase the mortgage to pay down. So when you actually take ownership of doing a lease option for 5 years, you actually get equity in the property as well, and you pay down. So now you get equity and a property. Right. But people argue with me and say, well, why do you charge so much? Why don't you make it less? And I said, this community, this is the community I was working in Baltimore, They wanted to do what's called put a land trust on all of the certain neighborhoods and properties. And what a land trust does is it says that it's going to stop the value of the property appreciating, so you can keep it at a lower cost.
What's the point of that?
And that sounds easy on paper. It sounds like it makes sense.
Right.
But what you're doing is you're destroying this community's ability to create wealth.
Yeah.
Because if the houses never get past $50,000, yeah, they might not be too expensive for them, but they'll have no equity. They have no wealth. Where everybody else has wealth, they can now take from their equity, their homes, start a business, and do other things. This community won't be able to do that.
Yeah. So we're going to help you and penalize you at the same time.
Exactly. And that's because you have people who, community people, I believe, who have great intentions, but don't really understand
No
how
common
finances
sense.
work.
Great intentions with no common sense.
And not having understand how the financial models work. And then the financial model, folks who understand how it works don't have the empathy for the community.
There you
And
go.
so those two people are disconnected. And I think that's where we are building within the Fully Human movement, is to build a bridge between the ones who really get both areas. And
Yeah.
say that capital can be used for good, not just an extraction.
Yeah.
Amen.
And I want to get my end on this quote and give each of you all a chance to say your final lines. And Jess, you've heard me say this on other podcasts as well, but it's something that I found to be very profound. And Alan Watts said this question. He said, what is rich really? Does rich mean having more than others or having the need for less? Because a person can live in a one-bedroom apartment and have an abundance mindset of what he's doing with his heart and have a better happiness of life than a man who lives in a mansion, who feels that everybody's trying to take his money, stays paranoid, and now lives in a world of constant lack and fear.
Yeah.
So which one is rich?
It's a need for less. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the wealth. That's rich. Okay.
Yeah.
Where you don't need anything to be rich. You
Yeah.
are rich just
You're
by
already rich. You're already valuable.
yeah. And believe me, I've chased all the shit there is to chase in life. Okay. and I've succeeded, right? And it's not worth it. I'm telling you right now, it's not going to fulfill you. And none of us are taking this shit with us. Okay.
Right.
When
You
we
got to leave it anyway, right?
leave this body, it's all being left behind. And think of all the time and energy, stress,
Yeah.
and things that don't serve us or others that we do to get this shit, right?
Yeah.
And it's insane. But that's the way the world is right now. That's what's changing. That's what's shifting.
Yeah. Right.
Because listen, right now, the rich are becoming richer and richer by the second, and the middle class is shrinking by the second, and the
Right.
poor are becoming more and more poor. That will break. That always
Yeah.
breaks, and
Yeah.
it's getting ready to break right now. Then there'll be some chaos, and then let's usher in a better way to live.
Yeah. Well, I declare it broken. And I also have the solution. Like, I'm really sitting in this experience today of being in the materialistic, driven, gaining process that actually was a drain, like a real emotional drain on my soul, and stepping out of that, like choosing not to stay in it, choosing to come detox myself at Mountains of Hope, choosing a different path for myself where I could be regulated and in the spirit of love, has allowed me to completely like revamp so much financial lag that was in the wrong direction, to then repurpose it in a direction that can become regenerative and actually serve a much wider population of people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I just want to close on this. And if you all have any other closing thoughts, please feel free to share. So I don't want to cut anyone else if you have something in your heart to share. But I do want to add these two things. When you talk about identity again, I remember when I was coming up, I went from making $19,000 a year at 19 to getting the computers and really mastering it, really learning it and studying it. So I was able to navigate. So in 3 years, I went from making 19,000 to 119,000 from different jobs I was able to jump to and opportunities I was able to get. And no one told me about financial literacy. So I thought when I was at 19, this is the kind of car I drive. Then when I make $60,000, I'm supposed to drive this kind of car and live in this kind of neighborhood. And then when I make $120,000, this is the car I drive. So I'm getting more and more in debt and not saving a difference at all because I don't know anything about it. And coming from a community where no one else was financially literate, there was no one else who can walk me through, this is what you're going to need to do. So you're going to make mistakes with money because everybody's telling you this is what you're supposed to buy. And then my culture had a hip hop music, everything was about buying gaudy, big things. So of course that desire is there as well. And I mentioned that because the financial debt that put me in took me years to get out of because of all the material things I had that depreciated in value, that I gave value to believing that that was what was considered to be successful. And then I want to address this part with you as well, Jess, when you talk about the fact of the children. And so this is why it's so important to teach children this financial education.
Yeah.
The question becomes, would you rather have, and this is a question I used to always ask people when I did financial literacy later on when I learned, would you rather have a $500 wallet or a dollar wallet with $500 in it? Right? And most people, logically, they'll say they'd rather have a dollar wallet, but their actions don't show that. Because I would always ask people, can you show me that you have more in your wallet than what it costs? Right? And these are communities where people will have these nice material things, but then not have any money in the bank because they didn't understand that you have to prepare down the road. So I just want to make people understand that this is where we're going with this conversation. So we're looking for solutions. As you said, the solution is showing and caring, but also having the discernment to make sure that we're caring only for deserving souls. Because serving the wrong people drains your energy. But serving others who appreciate it and then impact others are increased. And I just want to leave our listening audience with that thought as we wrap up today's show of the Fully Human Trinity. And again, look at your identity and ask yourself, what is the value of the identity you've chosen and what is it doing for you? Does it make you a more peaceful person, a more loving person? And more importantly, does it make you a better person? And that's the question you want to ask yourself about the identity you've chosen. Hopefully you've chosen it. If not, choose it. Until next Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, let's all continue to look for ways to become more fully human. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Race is a lie, a ghost in the machine, a veil over the eye. Race is a lie, a script for the managed, a reason to die. It's the dementia, the spirit, it's the glitch in the code. It's the heavy, heavy baggage on a sovereign road. Dissolve the construct. Yes, yeah. It started as a lie, a whisper in the dark, designed to keep the brothers from finding the spark. Father is a soul whose sovereign operating system was no longer whole. He didn't pull that trigger from his fully human place. The construct had the wheel, the construct ran the race.